Passed down through generations, these cherished family recipes carry the flavor of tradition, now reimagined with a modern twist. From classic comfort to contemporary creativity, it's heritage with a fresh new flavor here at Pope's Plates.
Welcome back to Pope's Plates. We have kind of an interesting recipe today. I think I mentioned to you all once before that I was in graduate school at the University of Tennessee, long time ago, 1968 and 69. One of the guys that lived upstairs from us was a pretty interesting cook. This is his recipe. It cooks for a long time, 3 hours on simmer once you get the meat cooked. I've got approximately 3 pounds of stew beef. I'm going to just look at it and make sure that there are not any great big pieces. Most of these seem to be maybe about an inch or so square, which is fine because after 3 hours, it's going to be falling apart anyway. I just want it to cook pretty much the same time. So there are a few that may be a little bit bigger. I'm going to spread them out here and just look while we're planning to get these in the pot. They will brown in some butter before we do anything else. Oh yeah, these look like they're okay. Let's double check this other one. Ooh. Now there's an interesting piece. Looks like there may be some gristle in that one. But that's all right. It's all going to cook down. Yeah, these look like they're okay. I don't think I'm going to have to cut much of this up. They're all about the same size pieces. Well, that one's a little bit bigger. Okay, that's a lot of meat. I'm going to get a couple of tablespoons of butter in a skillet. I wanted to have the skillet to spread this out a little bit. When we actually cook the carbonnade, which is what it's called, it will go into a deeper pot that holds the liquid and it's a little bit more compact. But I want to make sure that the meat browns well in a skillet before I start the rest of this. I'm going to let this butter get a little hot. Tablespoon of butter doesn't seem like very much to brown 3 pounds of meat, but we'll see what it does. Now, it's not going to be possible to turn each one of these pieces of meat while you're cooking it. That would be way too much trouble. So we're going to stir it around. Going to get as much of it browned as we can, looking brown, but stand here for each piece. Don't think we're going to do that. We did have a good friend, though, who helps us cook when we're on our traveling trips, and we were making a shrimp dish, and she chose to literally turn every single shrimp in the pan. Jennifer and I were standing there kind of being impatient, waiting on her to finish up turning all of her shrimp. I don't want to do that with this meat. So we're going to stir it around. It's going to take a while. I'm going to let that cook, and I'm going to go back over and get our onions chopped because the onions will go into this as soon as the meat has been browned. Okay, we have got a great big onion here, and we're going to use all of it because 3 pounds of meat can take a lot of flavoring. Jennifer and I have talked about the fact that we probably need to get some new knives. My knives are not very sharp, and while I have a sharpener, And I try to sharpen them periodically. It still takes a lot of effort to cut through something. So we may have to fork over some money to get a really good set of knives. I think this knife actually was one that my dad bought for my mother. And that was a long time ago. My parents have both been gone for a long time. So this knife is probably 70 years old. And then we're going to cook all these onions in some more butter until they are translucent before we add them to the meat. And then the liquid that is in this, and we're printing the recipe exactly like Bill, my upstairs neighbor, printed it. It calls for a cup of beer. In parenthesis, he said, I use a 12-ounce can minus one big drink. So that's what we're going to try to do. I don't drink beer, actually. I'm going to try to take sort of close to 12 ounces, but with the enough left to pretend that we had one big drink. Whew. I'm going to be in tears here in a minute. Put that in the garbage bowl. Okay. That's ready to go when the meat is done. Let's look at it. The meat is not quite ready, so we're going to stop right now, come back to you when the meat is ready to put into the cooking pot, and we begin to saute these onions to get them translucent. We'll see in just a few. The meat has browned, and I'm going to transfer the meat to the actual cooking pot that we're going to use. As this meat cooked a little bit, it produced a fair amount of liquid. That liquid is not something that I want to keep. Once I get the meat out, I'm going to put the liquid in a bowl and then add the additional butter to cook the onions. I don't think we need all of this liquid because we're going to be adding consommé and our beer, not minus one sip, but that's the liquid that actually cooks this meat over the 3 hours time. All right, just about got it all. Okay, I'm going to pour this liquid in a pot here. Okay, and I will add more butter. Oh, I had a knife here somewhere. There we go. Going to add another tablespoon of butter to my pot. And we're going to put these onions in here. Ooh, goodness. And these will cook until they're translucent. And really over the 3 hours of cooking time, these onions are almost going to dissolve. By the time we finish, this is going to look just like one great big piece of meat. You're not going to be able to tell much about the onions being in there because they do cook so long. This is sizzling. We're going to keep the temperature fairly high. I may turn it down a little bit. By high speed may burn them if I'm not careful. Now to thicken this, once the onions are translucent, we add a tablespoon of flour and let the flour cook off. You know, flour has got a pretty intense flavor if you don't let it cook for a few minutes. It is used to thicken this carbonnade. So there's several other things. Bay leaf and some sugar goes in along with salt and pepper. So this is going to cook for about another 10 minutes maybe until they're translucent. And we'll come back in just a minute. Okay, our onions are ready, and we're going to add a tablespoon of flour to the onions. And we're going to cook this down so that the flour flavor is gone. Maybe just a minute or so. You want to stir this around so that you don't have clumps of flour sitting on top of an onion that hasn't been stirred in. And I actually used my seasoned flour. I keep seasoned flour in the pantry all the time that has just a touch of paprika in it. So the onions have a little bit of a pink color to them. That's all right. Okay, now I am going to turn the heat down on this. Move this over. Move our meat back. And I'm going to add the onions to the meat. We're going to add a cup of beer. And actually, I'm going to add that extra really big sip that I'm not going to take. We also are adding a half a cup of beef consomme. We're going to put in a bay leaf. And we're going to put in a tablespoon of sugar. Going to add a teaspoon of salt and about a half teaspoon of black pepper. I'm going to stir this around. Make sure that bay leaf is down in there. All the onions are mixed in with the meat. And we're going to put the top on this. I'm going to let it come to a boil with the top on it. Then I'm going to turn it down to simmer, and it'll cook in 3 hours. It's a long time, but it's going to be good when we get it finished. We'll see you later. Well, sometimes you are hesitant to use alcohol in a recipe for whatever reason. I am not hesitant to do it, but there are members of my family who have been alcoholic and are recovering. A substitute for beer, if you don't want to use it, is to use all of the can of consomme and about 4 ounces of seltzer water. That gives a little bit of a fizz, and that will replace the beer if you choose not to use that. We'll see you later after this is finished. The first thing I need to do in preparation is melt some butter. Okay, the carbonnade is finished. It took almost 4 hours to cook. When I tested it at 3, some of the meat was not quite as tender as I had wanted it to be, so I cooked it for an hour longer. We have now served it over some bow tie pasta with a dollop of sour cream and some green onions. This, with a side salad, is going to make a wonderful dinner. If you like this recipe, please leave us comments below. We invite you to like this video and to subscribe to our channel. Until we see you again, let's keep cooking.